Hey guys, welcome back to another video with Lim Reviews. Today we're going to check out the Redmi Note 10s that I have here, and I've been using this for a couple of days now, and I've got some pretty good news to share with you guys about this particular smartphone right here. So if you're new to the channel, I did the Redmi Note 10, the little brother, a couple of weeks ago or a couple of days back. Then we have the Redmi Note 10s, which is the middle child right here. And we also have the Redmi Note 10 Pro that I don't have here today with me, but that is the slightly more powerful version. So three devices here in the Redmi Note 10 series. So like I said, we'll be focusing on the Redmi Note 10s right here, which is a really nice device after using it for a couple of days now. So this device here was launched in Malaysia, I think for a couple of days back for RM899. And I would say that that is a pretty interesting price point right here, because it is way below the 1,000 ringgit mark right here, and it does come with some interesting specs to go with it as well. So before I go into the details on how it actually performs on the day-to-day, let me just show you guys around this device itself. If you just take a look at it, it is actually pretty standard right here in terms of the design. We do have plastics all over the device itself. It is a fairly nice and nicely well-built device right here. It doesn't feel cheap at all, and the good news about this is that it's very slim. It has a very slim profile right here, and it fits perfectly well even with small hands like myself. So definitely a strong point there. If you take a look at the camera, it is very similar to the other Redmi Note 10 series devices. It's just a tiny little bump at the back here, which doesn't bother me at all. And on the sides here, everything is just very clean with just a couple of buttons, but you still do get your fingerprint scanner on the side. So that's pretty good, especially in these days where we're always wearing our mask, and it's just so much easier to unlock your device. Alright, so flipping the device to the front here, we do see that we have a tiny selfie camera at the front. It is a tiny round circle. The cutout is quite small if you ask me, and it's not very obvious on the display itself. And in terms of the chins, you can't really see from this screen right here. So let me just take a photo here so you can see the chin and the bottom. It's a little bit thicker than the forehead at the top, but again, not too much to complain about that there. Alright, so now let's talk a little bit more about that display. So in terms of the display, we do have a fairly large AMOLED display right here, albeit at just 60 frames per second. So it's a 60 Hz device right here. It's not like a high refresh rate. But what I want to say here is that even though it is just 60 Hz, it is actually still quite smooth. I know there are a couple of devices that are also 60 Hz, but it might be worse performing, so that you actually feel some lags and stutters in between the apps and all that. But for the Redmi Note 10s here, I realized that everything was just fairly smooth. I did not have any issues with the display itself, and overall I'm actually quite pleased with this display. So another thing that I found out about the display is that when I took it outdoors right under the sun, it was fairly bright enough that I was able to see all the text on the display itself. Even when taking photographs, I could still see the photos from the phone even under direct sunlight. So that's something that I want to call out. Alright, so that's just in terms of the display itself. Moving on, I want to touch a little bit about the processor and the power that it's having in this device right here. So you might already know that we do have a Helio G95 processor, and what that means is that the processor is kind of tailored for gamers. Obviously, this is not the highest range kind of a processor right here, so you can't expect the best performance. But what I must say about this device right here is that it does perform very well when you're playing games. So as you can see on my display right here, I have a couple of games here. The ones that I play the most are actually Mobile Legends and PUBG. For Mobile Legends, I think it's a fairly decent device right here, because what I can see here is that when you go into the settings, oops, it's a little bit loud right there. So if you do go into settings for Mobile Legends right here, notice that you could actually set the settings for the graphics to go to Ultra. And bear in mind, some devices that cost about 3,000 plus ringgit here in Malaysia, I don't want to call names, but those devices don't even support the Ultra mode here. Whereas on this Redmi Note 10s, it actually supports the Ultra. Alright, so now that I've got the game started up, let me just show it to you very quickly so you get what I mean. So I'm just going to close all this and go into my settings. And if you take a look right here in terms of the graphics, we have Ultra already checked. So I've played games on this device right here, the Mobile Legends, and it's just very smooth. I had no complaints whatsoever. I was able to game very nicely on this device right here, so that's definitely a plus point. Another thing you need to take note of is the PUBG on this device as well. So it also runs very smoothly. It runs at 60 FPS, no issues there at all. But again, let me show you the highest settings that you can get. And if you go into your graphics, you can see that the maximum supported on this Redmi Note 10s here is the HDR itself. Sorry about that. HDR is the max, as well as you can go with ultra frame rate. So if you go to Ultra HD, it will say that it is not supported at the moment. So it's actually pretty cool that we can get HDR and ultra, because like I said again, some devices that are above 2,000 or 3,000 ringgit, 2 or 3 times the price of this device right here, doesn't even support ultra on their devices. So again, very pleased with the kind of performance that we can get on the Redmi Note 10S. Alright, so I also did a quick Geekbench test on this device right here, and if you just take a look at the results, I got a 505 for the single score and 1,654 for the multi score. So if you want to use this for your reference, you can take these numbers for you to check it out. But bear in mind that the performance here is very similar to the Snapdragon 732. So this is what you can expect, mid-range kind of performance on this pretty affordable device right here. Alright, so one thing I need to call out here is that this device does not have 5G supported, but based on a poll that I did like I think a week ago or slightly more than that, I noticed that most of you guys don't actually care too much about 5G. So if you can omit that in one of your requirements, then this device here is actually quite strong in terms of performance. Other than that, browsing everything on the daily obviously is just very smooth. Everything launches up pretty quickly, as you can see right here. This is the kind of speeds that you can expect from Facebook. If you go into Instagram right here, it takes a couple of seconds, and there we go. Also very fast as well. Nothing much to complain about there. Again, it is a very smooth experience in terms of day-to-day use. Alright, enough about the performance. Now let's talk a little bit about the cameras at the back. So we do get a 64 megapixel main, an 8 megapixel ultra wide, and 2 megapixel depth and a macro or something like that on this device, which I never use. What I did test out though was the 64 megapixel main sensor and the ultra wide. And just to sum up my experience with the cameras here very quickly, what I can see here is that the colors coming out from the camera here isn't its strongest point. So what I mean by that is photos taken on this device right here, sometimes they do look a little bit flush or washed out. Other times the color just isn't that accurate. For instance, when I was taking photos of these trees at the back here, it did look like a different tone of green from the actual green that I was seeing with my eyes. So that is something that you need to take note of. But when I did take photos of myself, of portrait pictures, just against the sun and with the sun as well, you don't have any issues there. They do turn out looking pretty alright with that kind of photos, so no issues there with the camera on taking people and all that. But just bear in mind that the color accuracy is not the best here. Even though we have 64 megapixels, it is clear, but it just doesn't look very good in terms of the color reproduction. Night mode is another miss kind of issue here as well. I noticed that when I took images at night, especially with the night mode turned on, they just look a bit grainy and it doesn't really brighten up the image at all. So it's not its strongest point at all in terms of the camera for the Redmi Note 10S. Alright, last but not least, I think this video is taking a little bit too long, but let me focus a little bit more about that battery at the back here. So we do have a 5,000 mAh battery with 33 watt charging, and thank goodness we still get a charger in the box even at this affordable price range. So it is a 33 watt charger and is able to charge the device up fairly quickly, so that's pretty cool as well. Last but not least, we do get your headphone jack here at the bottom, as well as dual stereo speakers that does go pretty loud. So I kind of like that, although you do feel some vibrations at the back here when the speaker is at pretty loud volumes. Alright, so as a matter of fact, let me just turn on a song very quickly here so you can, roughly get an idea on how it sounds like at an arm's length distance. Alright, so that's the kind of audio experience that you can get from the Redmi Note 10S. Again, I think it is a pretty good audio quality coming out from this device right here. It does get fairly loud and the audio quality sounds crisp and nice. Alright guys, I think that's pretty much what I want to cover with the Redmi Note 10S over here. Overall, for the price of RM899, I'm very satisfied with everything that I'm getting with this device right here. You do get a pretty nice AMOLED display. I do wish it came with a higher refresh rate, but at this price point, I don't think it's a huge deal breaker. Apart from that, you are able to get this pretty good gaming experience on this device here with your Mobile Legends and PUBG. Very nice there. What's a bit lacking here is the camera, but you do have an awesome set of speakers as well as a pretty good battery at the back. So yeah, this is what you can expect with the Redmi Note 10S, guys. If you have any further questions, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I hope you give this video a thumbs up and a like, and I'll see you guys in the next next one. Bye!